I'm Swapna Kishore, and the patient I look after is my mother, and she's got dementia. I think it's been around 7 or 8 years since she was formally diagnosed. Though she had been to some specialists before, they didn't give me the word. They just said, yeah, this is, it won't get better and all that, but they didn't give me a formal diagnosis. Then around 8 years back, a doctor said, okay, you've not got a formal diagnosis, and he gave me a formal diagnosis. See, the word dementia in English is often misused in the sense, of course, I had heard the word, but I had not heard of it as a medical word as such. When someone acts vague, people joke and say, oh, he's got dementia, oh, he's demented, this behavior is demented. So the word has sort of got desensitized. So although I had heard the word, I had not heard of it in a medical context as a disease which is physically caused, but as a sort of a behavioral thing which explains odd behavior. My mother's symptoms were not of the sort where we took her for the symptoms like memory loss. Her problem was really balancing. She was having a lot of problem balancing. In retrospect, I can say that yes, she did have other symptoms also, and she was covering them up very well, which also I understand now is a common thing. She was covering up her inability to recognize people by saying, of course I recognize you, when she did not. By using various, and she was keeping herself apparent in social ways as being active, whereas she was suffering loss. She'd stop reading books and say, oh, they don't interest me. In retrospect, I can see that she knew she was not able to understand them. See, the whole thing is that in the diagnosis, they say dementia, they say it's memory loss, they say it's incurable, but they don't really prepare you for what memory loss means in the context of dementia. So to us, normally memory loss is misplacing a key, it's forgetting the name of someone in front of you. It's not like you forget who you yourself are. It's not like, as I can see in my mother's case, she would forget where the toilet is. Or she would forget, even if taken to the toilet, she forgets what it is used for. When people talk of memory loss, again the word is a devalued one. You forget your key, people say, oh, senior moment. People joke about it. So when the doctor says, oh, she'll have more and more memory loss, the impact of it, of what it means in real life, did not strike. So, yeah, I was not prepared for it. Although I knew it was memory loss, although I knew in theory it will get worse, I didn't know what memory loss meant. I mean, what does a person do who doesn't remember who she is? How will she react to someone else leaning over her or telling her to do something? She can't remember a word, how would she react? What memory loss means in real terms, and not memory loss as of losing a key, but memory loss as of dementia. Yes, it hit me hard. She used to be repeating questions again and again. I would lose my patience. I would feel helpless. She would accuse me or the maids of stealing things, of wanting her house. She was getting suspicious. She was getting repetitive. She was getting very difficult to handle. I had no idea how to do it because nothing prepared me for it. I just expected memory loss. It was difficult because in the beginning, for example, in the first few years, I used to be working. I used to sometimes work from home, and sometimes I would cook the food, leave it for her, and go off. And she would come back and say, you've not kept food for me. And once she went to a neighbor and told them my daughter is not giving me food because she's too busy, so she hired the neighbor to cook and give food, and the entire neighborhood knew. Her daughter is not giving her food. And I told her, look, the food was right here. She says, nobody came and gave it to me. I said, if I'm not at home, you just have to, it's all in casseroles. And it became very difficult socially. I had to change my pattern of working. I had to switch over totally to working from home. And I was in a profession where that's not always feasible, because you do need to meet people if you're a consultant or you're developing systems for them. So there were a lot of things, and it kept, I did not know about support groups. I surfed a bit on the internet. Of course, they all said memory loss. I didn't think about what it meant. I think one of the problems, as I think about now, is that a lot of people, as I myself did not know, although I had a patient at home, a lot of people do not understand what dementia means. Even if you tell them, they either don't understand or they don't believe. So if a person says that, my mother has dementia, they say, yeah, we all know about old age. We all have it. And especially old persons, they say, oh, we are also old, we also forget. And a lot of old people, they want active lives, they want to meet people and all that. And a dementia patient's need is to have routine. So there's a limit to how much. For them, everything is new. You see, a person who's forgetting everything, they're sort of losing their navigation of the world all the time. So for them, even an ordinary activity is a new and strenuous activity. There's a limit to how much new stuff you can do with a dementia patient without taxing them. So it is considerate to follow their routine. But the old people around us, they think that a person imposing a routine is being cruel. Because they can't imagine living an old life like themselves. They can't imagine a life in which they would be following the same routine day after day. So a lot of old people around me, friends, colleagues of my father, friends of my mother, there are some relatives, they were very suspicious about what I was doing. They thought I was either being lazy or inconsiderate. If I told them dementia, they would just dismiss it and say, oh, we all know about old age. It's just a faster old age, that's what they called it. So I faced a lot of criticism from people. There was an old lady who would even, she would come and tell my mother, you don't have willpower. Why can't you read? You say you have done MA. My mother's a triple MA. And she would look at my mother and say, why can't you read this? You say you have done MA, now you can't even read this. And I would say, please don't say that to her, it hurts her. I'm only encouraging. In front of the lady, she would say, yeah, I will read. Then that lady used to say, don't let your daughter stop you. And she said, my daughter stops me. She would put the blame on me. And after the lady would go, she would cry. She would just cry and say, what can I do? I can't read. But on other days, she would say, you are stopping me from reading. You are the reason I can't read. But in front of that lady, she would use all her social skills and say, yeah, of course, I will read. And this lady used to lay conditions. If you don't read this, I won't come to meet you. Or I will come to meet you only when you can make tea for me. And she thought she's being encouraging. It's sheer. I think in the beginning, I stressed myself a lot because I was ignorant. I did wrong things for myself and my mother because although I knew about the word, I had not thought about it. I think sort of reached ahead at a point when I was, I was just totally helpless. I happened to hear about the support group. I contacted them. I got a few leads from here and I ordered a whole set of books. And I read them. I said, okay, if this is my career, if caregiving is my career, how do I prepare for a career? And I read the whole set. And then I realized that there were lots of things I could do differently. And I started making small changes and my mother responded. Her agitation reduced and I had sort of given up on it. I introduced games for her. In the beginning, you see, when people used to visit her and I used to say, okay, I used to give her books in large print, she used to refuse because those people expected her to read Atmabodh, Bhagavad Gita, small print. I am giving her things like Mullah Nasruddin Shah, those stories. And so when the social pressure was there, she was not responding. But when the social pressure was gone, she is willing to play games now. There has been an improvement. She's more cheerful. She doesn't get agitated so often. I feel more cheerful dealing with her. I feel more able to appreciate what is still there rather than getting angry about or sad about what is lost. So equipping myself with the knowledge has made a lot of difference to both me and my mother. And that has reduced the stress of this. Yes, support systems will help. The other thing I do is I blog about it sometimes. I don't think anybody reads the blogs, but just putting it out helps. It makes me feel I'm doing something. Plus, of course, there are meditations and walks and all the usual sort of stuff. I think the books can help a lot. I think the books, plus a few meetings with other caregivers or some sort of sessions like the support groups. See, the books, they seem like theory. When you meet some people who actually tell you that, plus you read the books, they make a difference. They made a difference to me. I normally restrict the interactive activities to 1 to 1.5 hours a day. I've got colored rings for her. I noticed that, first day I gave her rings, she couldn't catch them. She would, if the ring was here, she would be feeling for it here. But now she's able to stack them by size. I sort of get the alphabet matching games, number matching games. I've got those marbles, counting. She enjoys them. I've got wooden jigsaws. So 5 pieces. I give her the same jigsaw every day. It takes time, but she enjoys them. So enjoys talking a bit. So I have to keep prompting her from what I remember about her child. She doesn't remember who I am most of the days. She doesn't remember her name most of the days. She can sign properly. I make her practice every day. She can sign only about 30% of the days. She doesn't remember that she ever married. She expects me to have known her grandfathers who died, much before I was born. She can't walk on her own. I would say she's coming close to the stage, but her progress is not that rapid. Maybe the type of dementia she has is not progressive. She gets agitated if she thinks someone is pushing her in terms of speaking rapidly, expecting too much. She gets agitated if she thinks someone is imposing their will on her. She gets agitated if she feels inadequate. So if a person comes and says, "Don't you recognize me?" And then she says, "Yeah, yeah," of course she doesn't, but she'll say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and then that really pushes. "Don't you remember this? Don't you remember that?" So that sort of thing agitates her, if not in front of them, but later. She gets agitated if there's a loud noise anywhere. If she's sleeping and there's a loud noise, she'll wake up saying, "Someone hit my head." So she gets agitated if she forgets a word she wants to use. So it takes really very little, but if you sort of look at her in her eye and try to understand her emotion and you're calm, the agitation goes off often enough. See, a lot of those things have gone off now ever since I've used these techniques which I have learned. As I said, overall awareness, so that overall people are less critical, more helpful, or at least less critical. That itself makes a difference. Plus, a group of professionals who are informed enough to support. I would also include the medical profession in that, because a lot of junior doctors, they sometimes forget that a dementia patient may not remember things well, and they go by that patient's version of the problems and ignore the caregiver. As you can see, my main theme is awareness, because if a caregiver knows what dementia is going to mean in real terms, the caregiver can be better prepared. Now, I have known people who have had dementia in the family, their parents or their grandparents, and even after having gone through that whole experience, they still don't know how to handle a dementia patient. They have lived with such a patient, they have given up and put them in old age homes, and even today they don't know that there are tools that a caregiver can use to communicate effectively with a dementia patient. The caregiver can use it, guests can use it. If they know about it, they can all be more compassionate, not just to the patient, but to themselves. The whole environment can be more supportive and compassionate if everybody understands what dementia means in real terms, in terms of, say, a role play. You just imagine a situation where you wake up in the morning and you don't remember your name. Okay, my name is far off. You don't remember who you are, You're sort of imagining yourself as a young person and your body is not moving. You don't know where the bathroom is. So people don't see it that way. And I think awareness is the main thing. So I would appreciate any effort that goes into awareness in terms of people not just having terms to latch onto, but scenarios to latch onto. The other thing is that we do need help to handle this. What I really feel is that a lot of us at home, we depend on home help, those full-time nurses or part-time nurses who come. And I've had nurses who again are ignorant about dementia, and you try to tell them something and they say, "Oh, we have handled old people before." And when the patient gets agitated or forgets and starts accusing the girls, "She didn't give me food." I mean, I know it's not true, so I tell the girl, "Okay, I'll handle it, just relax." But they get agitated because they think they're being accused, so they start fighting right off, She's lying. Not a full-fledged training, but a sensitization module, which a lot of home help people, there are innumerous agencies out here that are supplying home help. If they can have these girls, do a 1-day, 2-day module where they can know that this is a disease. It's not stubbornness, it's not willpower, it's not someone acting nasty, it's not someone lying. It is just a helpless person who doesn't remember. So awareness, I think, and a set of professionals who can direct.